Greg, a few-year-old engine with 4,000 hours will be in a lot better condition than an older engine with 4,000 hours. The new engine has been run often and has less cold starts. Things don't wear out fast when you have a constant wedge of oil between components. And that is true. You know, that's kind of one of the discussions that you always have is how many hours is too many hours? And then also, you know, how old is too old? And in the boating world, honestly, I would rather have high hours and not as old than super old with low hours. There are some caveats there. So like if you find a barn find that's up in the middle of the Midwest and the thing's been sitting in a barn and has really low hours, but it's been kept out of the weather, that's different than say a boat that is in South Florida in the salt air, in the salt water, in the climate, in the elements. The 20-year-old boat in that environment is going to be way more problematic than the one that's up north. And again, going to the hours, the boat that's been sitting in this salt environment or this, you know, high temps outside in the weather, the rain, the sun, and all that other stuff that goes on, if the boat sits, all of the rubber components are dry rotting and cracking and failing and going to be problems. All the hoses are getting hard and cracking and going to be a problem. All of the, you know, shutoff valves and all that stuff is rusting up and locking up. Same thing with the engine. Like he's talking about, if, you know, you run the engine pretty consistently, let's say you run an engine once, twice a week, that is keeping oil on everything. So you're running the engine, oil is going on the cylinders, on the rings, on the valves, on all the parts of the engine. So everything's staying lubricated and it's not just sitting there rusting where you've got galvanic or electrochemical corrosion happening where the metal is just deteriorating and breaking down because it's metal. So the older an outboard or an engine or a boat or whatever, the older it is, depending on the climate, is going to be in worse shape than something that's got high hours because it is being ran and it's being taken, you know, I wouldn't say taken care of, but it is functioning a lot more. Everything's getting worked. It's getting stressed. It's keeping lubricated. Like, you know, all the hoses and stuff is having water going through it. So it's not just sitting there dry rotting. Whereas the boat that just sat there, so take a 25-30-year-old boat that sat in South Florida outside for 30 years but has 20 hours on it versus a boat that, you know, same conditions, same weather, but it's only 6 years old but has 4,000 hours on it. The boat that's 6 years old is probably going to be in better shape than the older boat just because of that time and the degradation and deterioration of the components and the boat just sitting there. Kind of what everybody says, you know, the worst thing for anything that's mechanical is to sit. And that's true because it just deteriorates and the weather will just eat it up. So definitely with you on that one. Whereas, you know, high hours versus high years, that's kind of my opinion. Now, if you like this video, you can watch the full episode over here or you can watch another clip over here.